The deep space listening post floated in silence, its sensors sweeping the empty dark between two uncharted star systems. For centuries, nothing had crossed this region except the slow drift of dust and the occasional comet. The crew of the Taishari outpost often joked that their posting was a punishment exile to the edge of nowhere. But on this shift, the scanners caught something. At first, it was faint. A shadow inside a shadow, moving against the background of the stars. Technician Vero tapped the console, thinking it was a glitch. The object had no transponder code, no energy signature, no navigation beacon. Yet it was moving with deliberate speed, far faster than any known freighter, far larger than any warship. Vero zoomed in, expecting to see the familiar curves of an alien hull. Instead, the shape remained dark and featureless, as if it swallowed light itself. A creeping unease spread through the control room. The captain was called. She studied the readings in silence, her spines bristling with unease. The object was nearly 50 kilometers in length, an impossible size for any ship. No known species had ever built a vessel that big, not even the ancient industrial empires of the core. Worlds. The captain ordered a full-spectrum scan. The sensors screamed with static, then fell dead. The shadow had blocked them completely. It wasn't jamming their systems, it was erasing their signals, as if the void itself refused to reveal it. Every instinct told the crew to send a warning to the high command. But when they tried, the comm relays cut out. Shadow was still coming. And now, it was close enough that its sheer presence could crush their instruments. Panic spread among the outpost crew. Some whispered about the myths, the silent arcs said to drift from another galaxy, ships older than recorded. History, bringing only death when they appeared. Others said it was an asteroid, but no asteroid moved like that. The captain gave the order to evacuate, though they knew there was nowhere to go. Before the escape craft could launch, the shadow passed them, not over them, not around them, through them. The lights dimmed. The station groaned as if the very metal of its structure feared what had just brushed against it. When power returned, the shadow was gone, already a shrinking blot in the distance. But the crew knew where it was headed, directly toward the largest Tashari warfront in the sector. News spread fast across military channels. The Tashari High Admirals demanded reports, but every fleet officer who tried to track the object saw their scans fail. No one could get a clear image. All they could confirm was its course straight toward the heart of the conflict, where hundreds of warships already clashed in a brutal campaign. The Tashari, proud and dominant in this region of space, believed they could intercept it easily. They assembled a strike fleet of their fastest destroyers and most advanced cruisers, confident that sheer firepower could halt anything. But the moment the object emerged from the dark, those same admirals fell silent. It was not a station, not a freighter, not even what they would call a warship. It was something else entirely, a fortress adrift in the void, its surface covered in vast armored plates and strange angular towers. Its hull shimmered with faint lines of blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. It had no visible engines, yet it moved as if the void bent to let it pass. Its scale dwarfed the largest Tashari dreadnought 10 times over. And then came the strangest thing, a single transmission, in a language most of the Tashari had never heard before, was translated automatically by their systems into 7 simple words. Clear our path. No negotiations necessary. The admirals, insulted, ordered their flagship to fire a warning volley. Brilliant lances of plasma lit the void, slamming against the shadows, Holland disappearing, absorbed like raindrops into an ocean. The giant did not slow. It did not turn. It simply kept coming. Then, without firing a shot, it began to release smaller shapes from its flanks. At first they thought these were escape pods, but there were hundreds of them, perfect spheres drifting into formation around the main vessel. The spheres did nothing, no weapons fire, no comm signals, just waited in an eerie, silent cloud. In the control rooms of the strike fleet, tension built to breaking point. No one knew what these machines were. Theories, flumines, recon drones, stealth missiles. The younger officers begged their captains to open fire on the spheres before. It was too late. But the admirals hesitated, sensing that something about this enemy was unlike any they had faced before. The giant vessel's comms went silent again. For a long, cold minute, nothing happened. The stars hung motionless. The alien crews held their breath. Then, without warning, the spheres moved. They did not fire missiles or energy beams. They simply accelerated at impossible speeds. Far beyond the reach of Tashari, intercept weapons straight toward the nearest ships. In seconds, entire squadrons vanished, their hulls sliced apart as if cut by invisible blades. The survivors watched in horror as the spheres regrouped, shifting formation with mathematical precision, always staying just outside the range of counterattack. Still, the main vessel never fired a single shot. Didn't need to, by now. Whispers began to circulate through the Tashari crews. Some recognized the language from intercepted fringe broadcasts. It was human. No one knew much about them, only that they were newcomers to the galactic stage, a species from a single small world on the far edge of the spiral arm. But if this was their ship, then humanity was nothing like the weak, primitive race the Tashari had assumed. This was something new, something dangerous. As the shadow moved deeper into the warfront, fleets scrambled to adapt, to find some way to stop it. But the humans aboard the Vanguard 4, that was its name, had only just begun to show what it could do. The Vanguard drifted forward like a moving continent, its massive hull blotting out the stars behind it. Around it, the sphere formations moved with silent coordination, constantly shifting patterns as if they were alive. Tashari fleet captains shouted orders, trying to regroup after the initial slaughter. But the moment they tightened formation, the spheres would dart between them, slicing through hulls, severing engines, or disabling power systems with surgical precision. It was unlike anything they had trained for. War without sound, without warning, without a single wasted shot. Aboard the Teshari flagship Vakshar, Admiral Razir watched the tactical display with cold dread. Every simulation they had ever run against unknown threats assumed an enemy with weaknesses, overheating weapons, vulnerable engines, blind spots in targeting systems. But this was something else. The Vanguard was not simply powerful. It was untouchable. No heat signature to target, no shield frequency to disrupt. Every attempt to scan it resulted in the same static black, perfect nothingness. It was like trying to fight the void itself. And still, the humans inside it said nothing. No demands. No threats. Just that one simple message. Clear our path, Razir clenched his claws, ordering all surviving ships to focus fire on the main vessel. Hundreds of plasma bolts and rail slugs streaked through the dark, converging on the Vanguard's armored hull. The strikes lit up the void in a brilliant flare, instantly as the giant absorbed them. Not a scratch, not even a spark. The alien crews could not understand it. No known armor could take that level of punishment without some visible damage. But the Vanguard was not like any known ship. It moved as though the attacks were nothing more than passing dust. On board the Vanguard, the human crew worked in calm precision. Their command deck was vast, a cathedral of steel and light, dominated by a panoramic view of the battlefield. Commander Elena Drake stood at the center, hands clasped behind her back. Watching the Tashari fleet break itself against their defenses, she didn't smile. There was no pleasure in this, for her only inevitability. Maintain sphere perimeter. No lethal strikes unless fired upon directly, she said in an even voice. The crew acknowledged with disciplined efficiency. To them, this was just another day on deployment. And yet beneath the calm there was purpose. The Vanguard was not here for conquest. It was not here for war. It had one mission, and anything that stood in its path would be removed efficiently, decisively, permanently if necessary. The humans had built this ship for a reason, and that reason lay far beyond the Tashari lines. But to reach it, they would first have to break the enemy's will without starting a war they didn't want. The spheres officially designated. Autonomous combat interceptors began their second phase. Instead of attacking, they started targeting enemy weapon arrays and communication relays, disabling them without destroying the ships entirely. It was an act of control, a demonstration that the humans could wipe them out at will but were choosing not to. For the Tashari, This was worse than annihilation. They were predators by nature, their entire culture built on dominance. And here was a species they had considered prey, showing absolute superiority while holding back. The insult was unbearable. Desperation crept into the enemy's maneuvers. Smaller corvettes tried suicide runs, diving straight at the Vanguard's hull. They never made it closer than 2 kilometers before the interceptors shredded them. Dreadnoughts attempted to ram the spheres and swarms only to find themselves surrounded, engines cut, drifting helplessly in space. Rosera ordered the flagship's main cannon to charge a weapon so powerful it could vaporize a small moon. He swore to himself that if nothing else, the Vanguard would know what it was to be struck by Tashari might. The blast came, a colossal lance of white energy that screamed across the void. It hit the Vanguard dead center. For a fraction of a second, the battlefield lit up like a newborn star. When the light faded, the giant ship was still there, still moving, still untouched. And then, for the first time since it had arrived, the Vanguard replied. A single beam of deep blue light emerged from beneath its armored hull. It didn't travel toward the Vakshar. Instead, it swept across the space between them in a perfect arc. Every enemy weapon it touched went dead silent, powerless, as if they had never been built. It was not an explosion. It was not destruction. It was erasure. Systems simply ceased to exist. In the stunned silence that followed, the humans sent a second transmission. This is your final warning. Interference will not be tolerated. The voice was calm, almost gentle, but there was steel beneath it. Admiral Razier knew then that this battle was lost. They had not been defeated in the traditional sense. There was no body count, no smoking wreckage, but their fleet had been rendered useless. They could no longer fight. And worse, the humans had done it without breaking a sweat. The Vanguard resumed its silent course, sphere formation reassembling like a school of deadly fish around a leviathan. Behind them, the Tashari fleet drifted in humiliation, their pride in tatters. But even as they passed beyond scanner range, whispers began to spread among the survivors. If humanity had ships like this, what else did they have? And where were they going in such a hurry? What the Tashari didn't know was that the humans were racing against time, and something far worse than war awaited them at their destination. The Vanguard moved deeper into the uncharted sector, its black hole swallowing starlight. The spheres returned to their docking bays one by one, vanishing into hidden ports along the carrier's flanks, till the great ship was once again alone in the void. Inside, the crew was quiet not with fear, but with the sharp focus of people who knew every second counted. The confrontation with the Tashari had been an interruption, one they could not afford. Every delay brought them closer to failure. Commander. Alina Drake stood at the central command platform, her gaze fixed on the forward display. The sector ahead was a dead zone, no signals, no trade routes, no colonies. Most charts marked it as hazardous do not enter. There was nothing out here, but emptiness and the wrecks of ships that never came back. Yet that was exactly where they were headed. Lieutenant Mason, her tactical officer, broke the silence. Long-range scans still show nothing, Commander. Whatever we're tracking, it's masking itself perfectly. His voice was steady, but Alina caught the tension beneath it. Everyone on the Vanguard had read the classified files. They all knew what they were chasing wasn't another fleet. It wasn't a planet either. It was something that moved between stars like a shadow, something ancient. Hold course, she replied. We'll see it soon enough. In the observation deck far below command, civilian xenobiologist Dr. Rion Keller stood with a group of specialists staring into the black. He was not military. The humans had brought him for one reason. He was the only person alive who had studied the fragments recovered from a derelict world at the edge of human space. The fragments spoke of a predator that did not conquer planets, but erased them, every living thing, every structure, gone as if it had never existed. Whole civilizations had been wiped from the record, and in every surviving account, there was a single description, a moving void, shaped like nothing and everything. Rion whispered to himself as if trying to believe it wasn't true. It's really here. It's nothing in this galaxy can stop. The Vanguard's engines pulsed, pushing the ship into the sector's heart. The deeper they went, the more unnatural the darkness became. It was not the empty dark of space, it was thicker, as if something was drinking in every trace of light. Even the ship's advanced sensors struggled to cut through it, returning distorted readings that made no sense. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, but nobody spoke. Then the first signal came, not a transmission, an echo. A single pulse of energy so faint it was almost lost in the noise. But to the trained systems of the Vanguard, it was like a whisper in a silent room. Mason's hands flew over the console. Contact, bearing, everywhere. Alina turned sharply. Clarify. It's not coming from one point, Mason, said, eyes locked on his display. It's reflecting from all directions at once, like it's surrounding us. The lights on the bridge dimmed for a fraction of a second. The ship's artificial gravity wavered, and the forward view screen flickered, showing nothing but black. No stars, no markers. Just an endless living dark pressing in on every side. Rion's voice cut through the silence from the observation deck com channel. It's here. For a heartbeat, no one moved. And then, out of the black, something shifted. It was not a ship in the way the crew understood ships. It had no hull, no edges, no clear form. The human eye could not decide where it began or ended. One moment, it seemed the size of a battleship. The next, it blotted out an entire starfield. The mind rebelled against it, as if trying to forget it the moment it was seen. The Vanguard's shields flared automatically, reacting to a sudden spike of unknown energy. Mason shouted, "It's scanning us." Alina didn't blink. Let it. It was a gamble. If the thing saw them as a threat, there might be no time to fight, no time to run. But this mission had never been about running. The black shape shifted. Again, and for the first time, it spoke not in words, but in a sound that bypassed the ears and went straight to the brain. Cold, crushing thought. You should not be here. Half the bridge crew shuddered, as if they had been plunged into ice. Water Rion gripped the observation rail, his knuckles white. "Commander." That's the same phrase recorded on the derelict fragments. Lena's jaw tightened. Then we found our target. In the endless dark, the thing began to move closer, not rushing, not threatening, but with the steady inevitability of a tide rolling in, and the Vanguard, for all its size and power, suddenly felt very small. The Vanguard's weapons crews were already at their stations, fingers hovering over controls, targeting systems painting the black shape that surrounded them. But the targeting data was useless. The object's form shifted every second. Warping sensor readings, bending light, defying every calculation. It was like trying to aim at a shadow in a storm. Commander Elena Drake stood at the center of the bridge, her voice calm but sharp. "Prepare for controlled fire. Minimum yield. I want to see how it reacts." Lieutenant Mason hesitated. "Commander, if this thing is what the records say, that's why it's minimum yield." She cut in. "We're not trying to kill it. We're testing it." All across the Vanguard, the hum of charging weapon banks grew. Deep in the carrier's armored spine, rail cannons aligned, their barrels longer than entire frigates. Missile silos slid, open with the smoothness of a predator's jaw. Energy lances built charge until the air on the bridge seemed to thrum with tension. The entity moved without haste, a slow spiral in the darkness, as if it were curious rather than threatened. Presence pressed against every mind on board, not with words now, but with an awareness. The crew could feel it watching them, studying them, judging them. Elena gave the order. Fire. The first rail slug tore into the void, a streak of tungsten moving at a fraction of light speed. Then the lances released their beams, pure columns of energy that could cut through battleship armor in seconds. A spread of missiles followed, their drives flaring bright before they vanished into the black. For a moment, there was only silence. Then the darkness moved. The energy beams vanished as if swallowed whole. The missiles never exploded. They simply ceased to exist mid-flight, their signals winking out like blown candles. Even the rail slug's tracking vanished, its impossible velocity undone in an instant. Mason's voice cracked. It ate them. No explosion, no debris, no heat signature. The weapons had not failed. They had been erased. The black shape rippled. And for a second, the crew saw something within it, lights, like distant stars, flickering in patterns no one recognized. Then the patterns pulsed and a shockwave rippled. Across the Vanguard, alarms blared, systems flickered, gravity stuttered. Alina gripped the railing, teeth clenched. Status: shields down to 60%. Hull integrity holding. We've got power fluctuations across all decks. Mason stopped, staring at his console. Commander, it didn't hit us. It's inside our systems. On engineering? Decks, displays warped into static. Navigation feeds filled with alien symbols. Automated security locks engaged at random, trapping crews in corridors. The Vanguard wasn't just being attacked, it was being examined from the inside out, Doctor. Rion Keller's voice comes from the observation deck, strained and urgent. It's not just disabling us, it's reading us. Every frequency, every system, every scrap of data. This isn't an assault, it's a scan on a scale I've never seen. Lena looked at the entity on the main display. Its shape had changed. Again, now stretching impossibly far, as though it wrapped around the ship like a living eclipse. And through the pressure in her mind, she felt the same cold thought from before. Unlightly now, it was louder. You are not ready. On the crew's faces, fear began to show. Not the fear of being destroyed, but the fear of being dismissed. Alina straightened. Reroute auxiliary power to come arrays. I want to talk to it. Mason turned to her like she'd lost her mind. Commander, it's not do it. Within seconds, the Vanguard's comm systems came alive, sending a broad-spectrum hail. No formal greeting, no tactical code, just a single human voice carried into the dark. This is Commander Alina Drake of the Terran Supercarrier Vanguard. You have scanned us. You have tested us. We request you identify yourself. The void did not answer immediately. But then, without sound, the crew felt something shift in the air, a weight pressing down, and the black shape began to pull back, not retreating, but revealing something larger behind it, something vast, something older than the galaxy itself. And for the first time, the crew understood what they had seen so far was not the whole. It was just the shadow. The Vanguard drifted forward, its massive frame moving at a crawl, guided only by the faint gravitational pull the entity left behind. The stars ahead seemed to warp and slide, rearranging themselves as if reality itself bent to make way. Every reading from the navigation systems was wrong, distances shifted, spatial coordinates looped, and what had been a cluster of ordinary stars now formed an arch, glowing faintly like the mouth of a colossal gate. No one spoke. Even the hum of the carrier's engines felt quieter, so the ship itself feared to intrude on the silence of this place. Commander Alina Drake stood at the forward display, watching the dark void open into something far more unsettling. Beyond the gate lay a structure, or perhaps it was many structures fused together, stretching out into dimensions the human mind struggled to grasp. It wasn't just large, it was impossible. Segments of it spun slowly yet seemed still. Entire city-sized panels unfolded in geometric patterns that hurt to look at too long. Light rippled along its surface in bursts like breathing. Lieutenant, Mason whispered without realizing it. That. Things bigger than our whole solar system. Dr. Rion Keller, who had seen his share of alien engineering, just shook his head. Not bigger, older, and it's not built in space. Space was built around it. The gate-like arch shivered once, and the black shadow they had been following slipped through without a sound. It did not wait. Elena's voice was steady. Follow it in, no one argued. The Vanguard moved closer, passing between titanic pillars, of light that had no visible source. The moment the carrier crossed the threshold, the universe changed. The crew felt it before they saw it. The pressure in their minds deepened. The sensation of being studied now accompanied by a strange warmth, almost like a welcome. The ship's instruments, however, went wild. Time appeared to stutter. A single second on the bridge clock stretched, broke, and reformed. Exterior sensors showed stars blinking in and out of existence like thoughts passing too quickly to follow. Then, the view cleared. They were inside an open expanse so vast it could hold entire fleets, yet it felt enclosed, like the inside of a cathedral built for gods. Monolithic towers rose into the darkness above, linked by bridges of light. Between them floated vessels unlike anything recorded, some the size of moons. Others slender and dart-like, all dormant but watching. None of them matched the black entity's form. "This is a harbor," Keller breathed. "A harbor for things." As if hearing him, the black shadow stopped ahead of them and began to shift again. Its form solidified, becoming more defined. Then before it all, spined shapes along its back, limbs coiled like serpents, and a head crowned with something like glass. From within that glass, a pulse of white light emerged, scanning the Vanguard once more. The voice came again, not in sound, but directly in every mind on the carrier. "You have crossed the threshold. Few are allowed. Lena survive." Alina stepped forward, her jaw set. "We didn't come here to survive. We came to know." There was a long pause, during which the other massive vessels in the harbor seemed to turn, ever so slightly, toward the Vanguard. "Then you will know," the voice replied. "But you will not return the same." At that, a panel of light opened in the void ahead, revealing a corridor between the massive structures. The black shadow slipped inside without looking back. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, but Alina gave the order. "Helm, take us in. Let's see what we were never meant to see." As the Vanguard followed into the corridor, the light around them bent. Shapes began to emerge in the walls, engraved symbols the size of continents moving in slow rotation. And somewhere deep in the carrier's hull, systems began activating on their own, as if answering a silent call from the place itself. It was clear now this wasn't just a meeting. This was an initiation. The Vanguard moved deeper into the corridor, the walls around it humming with a low vibration that rattled through every bulkhead and bone. The light ahead grew stronger, not like a glow, but like something tearing reality apart to let brightness through. The black shadow they had been following now moved slower, as though even it was wary of what waited ahead. Then the corridor opened into a chamber so vast it seemed infinite. At the center floated a shape, a construct beyond all sense of proportion. It was not a ship, not a station, not a planet. No. It was all three at once, a living thinking machine the size of a world. Its surface shifted constantly, patterns of light racing across it in ways that felt like language too old for time. And the moment the Vanguard entered, that language spoke. "Humanity. We have been watching you." The voice was not like before it, wasn't cold or alien. It was curious, deep, weighted with the kind of authority that made every instinct scream kneel. Alina Drake stood on the bridge, her eyes locked on the screen. "Who are you?" "We are the Foundry. We build the arcs. We seed the carriers. We test the worthy." Dr. Rion Keller frowned, his voice trembling. "Arcs? You mean ships?" "You built this place to create ships." "Not ships," the voice corrected. "Weapons. Carriers for species that will change the order of the galaxy." The black shadow moved forward until it hovered between the Vanguard and the Foundry. Then, before the crew's stunned eyes, it unfolded and reformed its dark plating, peeling back to reveal a core of shimmering silver. It was no longer a shapeless shadow. It was a vessel, and inside it, a pilot, a human pilot. Mason's voice cracked. "That's impossible." The pilot's face appeared on their combs, pale, marked with scars, eyes burning with something between pride and warning. "This is what you become when you pass the trial. This is what the Supercarrier was meant for, to take a human and make them more." The Foundry's voice echoed again. "Humanity's rage, your stubborn will, these are your gifts, but raw. Power is nothing without purpose. You are not here by accident. You have been chosen to carry the Ark." Alina took a step closer to the console. "And if we refuse?" The chamber dimmed, and for a moment every vessel in that infinite harbor shifted. Their attention to the Vanguard. "Refuse, and you will never leave." Silence gripped the bridge. The choice was no choice at all. Lena turned to her crew, meeting their eyes. Then we accept. Humanity accepts. The Foundry's light flared, wrapping the Vanguard in an energy so intense. It overloaded every sensor. The crew felt a tan expansion in their minds, a connection to something vast, ancient, and unstoppable. The ship itself changed under their feet, armor plating growing thicker, weapons sprouting like steel wings, power surging through the engines until the carrier felt alive. The Foundry spoke one last time. Go now, humans. You are the Vanguard. Your war will come sooner than you think. In an instant, the corridor reappeared before them, and the Vanguard was hurled back into normal space. Stars blazed overhead. The galaxy seemed different now, just full of danger, but full of opportunity. Mason broke the silence with a low whistle. So, we just became the most dangerous thing in the universe. Elena smiled faintly, eyes on the stars. No, we just became the one thing the universe will never see coming. The Vanguard turned toward home, no longer just a ship, but the first of humanity's true supercarriers. And somewhere in the far reaches of space, other eyes were watching and preparing, because the Foundry had not built only one.